Okay, I'm gonna finally get around to reading How Might We Align Transformative AI If It's Developed Very Soon, which is going to be me reading it out loud and talking out loud if I have any thoughts that come to mind. This post is part of my AI strategy nearcasting series, trying to answer key strategic questions about transformative AI under the assumption that key events will happen very soon and or in a world that is otherwise very similar to today's. This post gives my understanding of what the available strategies for aligning transformative AI would be if it were developed very soon and why they might or might not work. It is heavily based on conversations with Paul Casciano, Ajay Kotra, and Carl Schulman, and its background assumptions correspond to the arguments Ajay makes in this piece, abbreviated as takeover analysis. So this is a piece without specific countermeasures, the easiest path to transformative AI likely leads to AI takeover, which I haven't read. Okay, so definitely seems good to think about what it would look like to align transformative AI now for a bunch of reasons. I guess one of them is we want to be prepared. I think it's a good exercise to figure out what you would do under conditions of different timelines. And no matter what you think your timelines actually are, seems like a lot of weird stuff happens. And it's like in many ways harder to, account for like a really shifting world. If it happens very soon, we have like less time to prepare. And so might be worth thinking seriously about. On the other hand, maybe we kind of have a much better sense of what those AI systems look like, because presumably they will be very similar to the ones that exist today. So they'll be like deep learning based. We maybe know something about the scaling laws, like how the current language models and other similar things like OpenAI's Whisper, which takes in sound and releases a transcript, things like that, like do better as you give them more and more parameters. And maybe we have a sense of what happens if you give them more and more compute, like computing power, and maybe what happens if you give them more and more data. I don't know if all of those are scaling laws or just the thing of parameters, meaning like how many like free variables they have, like how many weights and biases they have to tune, like different like knobs and dials you can adjust. Let's say AI scaling laws. Scaling laws refer to the observed trend of some machine learning architectures, notably transformers, which are the ones that my understanding is most current ones are, but I don't really know. I don't really know what a transformer is. To scale their performance on predictable power law when given more compute data or parameters. Okay, so any of them. Fine. Assuming they are not bottleneck on one of the other ones. Cool. So this is from the Lime form. This is from Less Wrong. This is from somebody I've never heard of. So I can't tell. Seems like scaling laws are not just a thing in my world. Yeah, OpenAI studies empirical scaling laws. Seems like they're just kind of a thing people talk about in general. I know there's currently an inverse scaling law prize. So like, can you think you win a prize if you can give an example of a system which does worse when you increase the data computer parameters? There was a cool list of examples, like maybe better, in some sense, better systems will like approximate humans more closely. And so if you give them a corpus of human data on language or writing or whatever, then it will also more closely approximate our mistakes. So one example given is if you give some language model a prompt and you like change the language that it sounds more like the beginning of a like conspiracy theory, then maybe the model will output conspiratorial false claims about the world, and so like do worse as it like better approximates humans, and so reveal sort of like worse behavior in some sense on truth telling, because it is doing like something else better. Fine. I premised this piece on a nearcast in which a major AI company, Magma, following Ajaya's terminology, has good reason to think that it can develop transformative AI very soon, within a year, using what Ajaya calls human feedback on diverse tasks, HFDT, and has some time, more than 6 months, but less than 2 years, to set up special measures to reduce the risks of misaligned AI before there's much chance of someone else deploying transformative AI. I will discuss why I think there's a major risk of misaligned AI in this nearcast. This will just be a brief recap of takeover analysis. So one thing we could try to figure out is, after reading this brief recap, and then if I read Ajaya's post later, which I intend to do, like how good the summaries are, which is sort of a judgment of Holden's ability to summarize, but also maybe gives us a bit of evidence on how good summaries of things like this are in general. Magma's predicament: navigating the risk of deploying misaligned AI itself while also contending with the risk of other, less cautious actors doing so. I guess one thing that comes into play here for me is like, what feels still a little unclear on what we mean by aligned. I feel like if you read the Eliezer Nate Sora's stuff, you get a sense of like aligned means, Eliezer says something like aligned means like less than 50% chance of killing over 1 billion people. So, I mean, that makes it sound like Magma's predicament is also maybe navigating the risk of deploying aligned AI. I don't totally know. I feel like if you read Nate Sora's stuff, it's like the ability to do a pivotal act, like an act that makes it impossible for other AI systems to exist or put them off for a while, so that once you get aligned AI, you don't get unaligned AI coming right at its heels. That also seems like a crazy world. I guess I just feel like a world with aligned AI is a pretty crazy world, and so it seems like Magma's in a difficult situation there as well. But maybe that's not what we would call a predicament, and maybe that's just like a total tangent. Fine. Well, also contending with the risk of other, less cautious actors doing so. Magma's goals that advanced AI systems might be able to help with. For example, A, using aligned AI systems to conduct research on how to safely develop still more powerful AI. So Magma, some AI companies, maybe it wants to like build even more powerful AI, and now it has an aligned AI system that can help it do that. B, using aligned AI systems to help third parties, e.g. multilateral cooperation bodies and governments, detect and defend against unaligned AI systems deployed by less cautious actors. So I guess maybe I have to read Ajaya's piece, and this is just the summary, but an AI company feels like it assumes a level of cooperation with the broader world. Like nowhere does it seem to say yet, like make a lot of money or capture the market against other actors creating aligned AI systems or things like that. Accountability to shareholders, PR. Who knows? Maybe they're not relevant enough. Maybe they're not goals that advanced AI systems might be able to help with, but that doesn't seem right. The intended properties that Magma will be seeking from its AI systems, such as honesty and corrigibility, in order to ensure they can safely help with these goals. Some key facets of AI alignment that Magma needs to attend to, along with thoughts about how it can deal with them, which include accurate reinforcement, training AI systems to perform useful tasks while being honest, corrigible, etc., and avoiding the risk, discussed in takeover analysis, that they are unwittingly rewarding AIs for deceiving and manipulating human judges. So if you give a kid a cookie every time they're honest with you, you're also going to give a kid a cookie every time they successfully deceive you, because what honest means to you can only be compared with like as good as your model of when they're being honest is, or your ability to access ground truth or things like that. I'll list several techniques Magma might use for this. Out of distribution robustness, taking special measures such as adversarial training to ensure that AI systems will still have intended properties, or at least will not fail catastrophically, even if they encounter situations very different from what they're being trained on. So some classic examples of this are like the little grid world examples that Rob Miles talks about in his videos, where you get an AI system that is trained on getting apples, but in its training data, the apples are always green, and then it like counters distributional shift. So it's now in a position where it is in a world with apples. Maybe the apples are yellow now and the like poison is green, and it like didn't actually get trained to go for apples. It got trained to go for green things, and so like it eats the poison. Preventing exploits, hacking, manipulation, etc. Even while trying to ensure aligned AI, Magma should also, with AI systems' help if possible, be actively seeking out and trying to fix vulnerabilities in its setup that could provide opportunities for any misaligned AI to escape Magma's control. I don't quite understand what that means. As in, like, Magma's misaligned AI or somebody else's misaligned AI? It says escape Magma's control, so it sounds like Magma's misaligned AI, which I guess is a good reminder that, like, maybe it's a bit weird to think about there being one AI system. Like, Google now has like a bunch of different language models, and so does OpenAI. And so, like, in some senses, they're all different AIs, and maybe each instantiation of it running on somebody's computer or a different server is a different AI. I don't really know how to think about that. Maybe it just depends on, like, if they can be modeled as having all the same goal or coordinating somehow. Confused. Okay. Vulnerabilities could include security holes, which AI systems could exploit via hacking, as well as opportunities for AIs to manipulate humans. Doing this could reduce the damage done if some of its AI systems are misaligned, because because they can't then like get out of Magma's control or like hack the systems that they're trying to use to create the aligned AI. Or B, avoid making the problem worse via positive reinforcement for unintended behaviors. Because if you reduce the ability for AIs to manipulate humans, then you reduce the risk of humans mistraining the AI. Although I'm not sure that's the thing I'd be most scared of if AIs could manipulate humans, is that they'd change the way that we train future AIs versus like directly give it power, give the like current AI system power that manipulated the humans in the first place. Don't know. Testing and threat assessment. Magma should be constantly working to form a picture of whether its alignment attempts are working. If there is a major threat of misalignment despite its measures, or if there would be for other labs taking fewer measures, Magma should get evidence for this and use it to make the case for slowing AI development across the board. Yes, that would be great. In general, it would be nice if there was a fire alarm for this kind of thing. Some key tools that could help Magma with all the above: decoding and manipulating internal states. The ability to, quote, read an AI system's mind, unquote, by examining its internal state or systematically change its motivations by manipulating that internal state could be useful in many ways for Magma. This isn't something we're able to do much of today, but it's an active area of research. Yeah, that definitely seems right. Systematically change its motivations would be great. Can like sort of adjust the goals, especially if we like notice issues. I guess you kind of always have the problem that like if you fix obvious problems, maybe you're just like setting yourself up to make there be problems you can't notice. Like by punishing deception, you are both punishing deception and also just punishing like bad deception. And so people might just like lie better and better. But it does give you a sense of some ground truth about what the AI is telling the truth about itself, which you didn't have without this. Or you had a worse sense of without this. Limited AI systems. Magma might train AI systems with limited capabilities, such that these systems, although less useful, are less dangerous than its most capable systems. This could include AI systems specifically trained to be myopic, not planning many steps ahead, or process-based, rewarded based on human approval of the plans they produce, but rarely or never based on the actual outcomes they achieve. And that's like maybe good because if you set it to an outcome, a system smarter than you or just like differently structured than your brain might like come up with plans you don't understand, and like maybe it will try to like end people dying from cancer by killing everybody, is some like extreme version of if you don't understand its options space, then you might get some ways of solving problems that are worse than the ones you had in mind in the first place. or worse than the problems you had in mind in the first place. Although I'm trying to remember, there's this part in the alignment problem, the book, where they talk about how you should always reward state, not process. Like you should reward there being a clean floor, not cleaning the floor. Or you're incentivizing, it was this guy and his like daughter, and he gave her positive reinforcement, sort of like a approving words for cleaning the floor. So she kept like dumping out the dirt from the dustpan and then like recleaning it up so she could keep getting the value. So you sort of have problems on both axes. Yeah. Thinking also about the like games where they tried to fix this. I'm only vaguely remembering, but like by giving you points for getting closer to the goal, but not taking away points if you get further. So it could just like kind of go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and get more points than just like winning the game. Limited AI systems could be important both because they could potentially provide a safe way to accomplish Magma's ultimate goals, see goals above, and because they could be key components of checks and balances set up below. AI checks and balances, employing a variety of AI systems with different capabilities and incentives so they can provide checks and balances on each other. I don't know if it's like hanging around with mirroring people or what, but like I have some inner voice that says like AI is keeping each other in check is like naive and cringe. Like that's just like shoving the problem of unaligned AI to other unaligned AIs and like hoping that it all evens out. There's no particular reason to think that like in Godzilla versus Sharknado, like that they just like perfectly balance each other out and are good for the world that way. And maybe there's like no particular reason to think that they're like exactly evenly matched. And if like one is only 1% better, then that could just like totally take over and destroy everything. So it'll be interesting to see what it says. AI systems could be used to examine each other's reasoning and internal state, make arguments that particular systems are being deceptive, point out risks of current training methods and suggest improvements, etc. If this goes well, AI systems could ultimately end up taking over much of the work of aligning future, more powerful AI systems. Keeping supervision competitive. Magma should generally be doing whatever it can to keep its supervision, the ability to correctly evaluate an AI system's reasoning and behaviors, competitive with its AI systems. The basic goal is AI systems are rarely or never able to successfully deceive their supervisors. All of the above and some other methods could be helpful with this. Okay, so supervision could be human supervision because it understands the internal states. It could be like other AIs being supervisory AIs, or it could keep its AI systems limited in order to hamper their power so that the supervisory agents, whoever they are, can indeed check to make sure they're doing the right things. Some major factors contributing to the success or failure of the attempt to avoid misaligned AI and some thoughts on how our odds look overall. Well, that's going to be cheerful. A few of the uncertain factors that seem most important to me are A, how cautious key actors are, B, whether AI systems have big, fast jumps in capability. I see this as central to the picture of the people who most confidently expect failure. And C, the dynamics of AI checks and balances. My overall take is that the risk of misaligned AI is serious but not inevitable, and taking it more seriously is likely to reduce it. Very optimistic. Okay. So we have the tools, which help us with the alignment things we want, like preventing exploits and out of distribution robustness and stuff, which leads to the intended AI behaviors like honesty, corrigibility, legibility, and value alignment, which makes it safe to pursue Magma's goals. I don't understand all of these. I could go back and check it against the thing from above, but I think we should just move on. Okay, the basics of the alignment problem. We have now started the actual post. 19 minutes in. This post assumes for near casting. What is this near casting thing? It keeps clicking this. AI strategy near casting. Oh, well, there's just another Holden post that I haven't read. Okay, so he just means, in fact, the thing he's doing, which is like, how would you align AI or other things if they happened very soon? Okay, fine. This post assumes, for nearcasting purposes, that there is a problem along the lines of what takeover analysis describes. In brief, I will use the present tense here for convenience, but I don't mean to imply confidence. The default straight line path to developing transformative AI using human feedback on diverse tasks, HFDT, would lead to AI systems that attempt to forcibly overpower all of human civilization. And people use on the main line a lot in like Less Wrong World, or I guess Eliezer uses it a lot, and so does Nate Soares. I don't know what people mean by default exactly. I guess, like, does it mean the modal outcome? I guess it just means if you like set all the settings to default, it's what you most expect to happen. That sounds like a modal outcome. I don't know if there's some subtle distinction there that matters. It is hard, or at least non-straightforward, to determine whether this sort of motivation is in fact present in AI systems. If we simply used negative reinforcement to discourage bad behavior and trusted AI systems once they stopped demonstrating bad behavior, this would effectively train AI systems to patiently evade detection and engage in bad behavior only when it would lead to successful disempowering of humans. That seems right. Hard to figure out if your AI system wants to forcibly overpower all of human civilization, because if you tell it not to have that motivation, as discussed before, like, you're both disincentivizing it from having the motivation, but also disincentivizing it from being honest with you about it. So at first blush, the answer to how hard is the alignment problem, which is a cool takes post, within How to Make the Best of the Most Important Century, looks like it's at least reasonably hard in this nearcast scenario. That's a lower bound. I haven't yet said anything to argue against insanely hard. Magma's predicament. Throughout this piece, I focus exclusively on the situation of the leading AI lab, the fictional Magma. I wonder if the fact that it's a lab and not a company means that's why he didn't care about the money stuff, but it just does seem like, well, why is OpenAI? Why are OpenAI and DeepMind and the other AI labs doing what they're doing? Is it because they're curious? Is it for science? Is it to usher in utopia? Is it to make money? I don't really know. Maybe that kind of matters. I guess you have sort of a sense of sciencey types as like just thinking information should be free and like that we shouldn't put constraints on ourselves. I feel like that's kind of what the biologists who want to do gain of function research, that's their orientation to it. If it's money, you have different problems. I don't know. Motivation maybe matters. Okay. I do this purely for convenience. If I were just to discuss a greater number of AI labs, I'd be saying largely the same things about them. It's just the like unipolar versus multipolar setup. I've read almost nothing about that. In this nearcast, Magma is essentially navigating action risk versus inaction risk. Action risk. Say that Magma trains extremely powerful AI systems with collectively PASTA-like abilities, which is the process for automating science and technological advancement. So the kind of transformative abilities Holden has talked about before in many of his posts. Like, if AIs can do science, then we live in a pretty interesting world because they can like do the kind of science that would increase their capabilities. And so you get sort of some feedback loops. And also it just means like science and technology are advancing way, way fast in that world. And tries to use a set of AI systems to make money or cure cancer or something like that. The risk here is that, per the previous section, Magma might unwittingly train the systems to pursue some unintended goals, such that once the systems are able to find a path to disempowering humans and taking control of all their resources, they do so. As a total tangent, I feel like this is making me aware of the ways in which, like, right, so American Sign Language is visual. British Sign Language, all sign languages are these, like, visual things. So this, like, means dad, this means mom. If I'm remembering my college class correctly. And you can write down sign language in the sense that you can, like, there is notation for writing down the signs and what hand shapes you're doing while you're doing them and therefore what they mean. But there's like this like deep gap between sign language, spoken sign language is written. And they're not different languages exactly, but kind of. Anyway, this is reminding me that like I say goal or goals where we can do it more efficiently in writing. So written English and spoken English, not exactly the same things. Okay. So once the systems are able to find a path to disempowering humans in control of all the resources, they do so. Sounds bad. So by developing and deploying transformative AI, Magma may bring about an existential catastrophe for humanity. Also seems bad. Furthermore, it might not take much for sufficiently powerful AI systems to find an opportunity to disempower humans. Simply being freely able to access the internet could be enough for a misaligned AI system to exploit security holes, make copies of itself to the point where its effective population is competitive with the human population, and find humans to manipulate into taking actions it wants them to take. Yeah, this reminds me of Holden has a post about the AI could take on all of us combined, and just like lays out a couple plausible to him scenarios about how it might go about doing that. The effective population thing is really interesting. It just makes a bunch of copies of itself and is like doing remote work, like contracting work that has to do with like spreadsheets and things you can access through the internet. Then you can just accumulate a ton of resources pretty quickly. The end result could be a large coalition of AI systems and humans armed with advanced technologies effectively seeking to control the planet, much as humans do now. Much as humans do now? Do we effectively seek to control the planet? Feels like a weird way to describe what humans are up to. Weirdly goal-oriented or something. Okay. Inaction risk. Say that Magma's leadership decides, we don't want to cause an existential catastrophe. Let's just not build AI advanced enough to pose that kind of risk. In this case, they should worry that someone else will develop and deploy transformative AI, posing a similar risk or arguably greater risk. Any company/coalition that chooses to deploy powerful AI when Magma doesn't may be less careful than Magma overall. Yeah, people say this a lot. There's this like ongoing debate about like the race dynamics of like, if we don't build it right, someone else will build it less right, and how far in advance you think you could be. And if you're doing stuff more safely, maybe it will take longer than if you do stuff less safely. And so like, there's no point in building safe AI if unsafe AI has already been built 6 months or a year before. But then thinking you're in a race dynamic when you're not is really bad. There was a EA criticisms contest post that I haven't read yet, about how the like American nuclear scientists thought they were in a nuclear race with Nazi Germany, and they very much were not. Like Nazi Germany was not anywhere in making an atomic bomb. This feels sort of similar to the dynamics of we should build AI so that we understand how to align it. Like you cannot align a thing, or it's just like much, much harder to figure out how to like manipulate and constrain a thing whose features you don't even understand, that you can't even work with. You can't do like empirical research on it. Which sort of goes back to like my musings at the beginning, like both good and bad, probably on that bad, but like good and bad if transformative AI comes soon and therefore is based on AI systems we sort of know better. I guess maybe the ideal, quote unquote, is like if transformative AI comes out of systems we are currently working with, such that we can like sort of directly work on them and do empirical research with them, but it still takes a really long time, which I guess is like the slow takeoff scenario, and sort of implies that we already have a bunch of the building blocks of general intelligence or transformative AI. I guess I'm a little confused whether PASTA and AGI are the same thing. Like Eliezer talks about there needing to be like a special sauce for intelligence, that like intelligence is like a qualitatively different thing. You don't just get like slightly smarter things and slightly smarter things and slightly smarter things. You get smarter things and then boom. And Holden talks about PASTA. I don't know how generally intelligent you need to have a process for advancing scientific, technological advancement. And why would that matter? If PASTA, well, for instance, if they're different, but PASTA is the kind of thing that could help you get AGI because it makes AGI capabilities work go faster, then maybe we in some ways have less time because all we need is to build pasta, and then we like are on a runaway train. We can't stop, and that's scary. We wouldn't even have the features of like realizing like, oh, this thing seems generally intelligent. What else would it matter? I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Okay. Oh, right. Like best case scenario is like same as now, but ongoing. Like, yeah. So best case scenario, I guess I'm just saying it's like the slow takeoff scenario, or like the Paul Christiana scenario, where we're going to see several doublings of the economy before things get totally out of hand. Like things are going to get crazier and crazier, but not normal, and then end of everything. Which I guess said that way seems pretty obvious. Anyway. Okay. Magma's goals. We're doing great. We are doing great. Magma's goals. Given the above predicament, I posit, as many others have in similar discussions, that Magma's top-level goal should be to reduce the odds that other, less cautious actors cause a catastrophe by deploying misaligned AI systems, while avoiding catastrophic misalignment from Magma's own systems. Okay. I wonder what the other top-level goals could have been. I guess, like, only one of those things, like not trying to avoid catastrophic misalignment itself, but fighting other misalignment, or vice versa. Focusing only on other groups, or just not worrying about it at all. Don't know. If Magma can develop powerful AI systems that are relatively safe, these systems could be helpful for that purpose via defense/deterrence/hardening. If aligned systems were deployed widely throughout the economy, this could make it harder for misaligned systems with similar capabilities to cause trouble. For example, aligned systems could be finding and patching security vulnerabilities that misaligned systems would otherwise exploit. Magma could develop and make widely available tools that companies and governments could use to monitor for signs of dangerous actions by misaligned AIs or by AI-assisted humans. If misaligned systems try to make money, gain influence, develop and manufacture new kinds of weapons, etc., they'd have to compete economically with aligned systems to do so. This could lower their odds of success and hence their likelihood of even attempting to cause trouble. It could also lower the potential gains of deploying potentially unsafe AI systems, even by incautious actors. Okay, so aligned systems are like helping us do what we want, which is to have a world without security vulnerabilities and monitoring the world for dangerous activity. Yeah, we just like have a bigger team on our side. Like we like sort of assembled the Avengers, which is like aligned AIs. And we just like have a bunch more computational power and I don't know, intelligence on the side of like looking out for this kind of thing. Are we doing any of this stuff now? Without the aligned AI systems? It feels like we do a lot of alignment work. Are we doing any like detection work? Should we be? Will it just be obvious when it happens? I don't know. One thing that I spent a lot of time talking to, or like one big conversation talking to Robbie Bensinger about, is the way in which I was sort of confused by the claim about FOOM once you get generally intelligent systems, because we have 8 billion general intelligences running around Earth, and we don't seem to have like ended ourselves. And among many other points that Robbie made was that like, yeah, it's not obvious that the first ever AGIs will end the world. It's just that you're like on a path that you can't stop, I think is the point he made. He can correct me. I think it was like, maybe the first AIs are like generalized tool AIs. And so they have all these biases because they were built to do scientific paper analysis like Elicit does. And so maybe just like humans have all these biases and that like makes them worse at thinking and then so like worse at acting in accordance with their goals. Maybe it will like see all problems as like too similar to problems. It will like use the hammer of scientific analysis for every nail, and so like not be particularly powerful or achieve its goals. We just like have reason to expect that it will like make copies, self-improve. But yeah, I don't know if the claim is that that thing is necessarily going to become dangerous, or we're just like in a world where if we can build that kind of thing, it's dangerous. I'd have to go back to my notes. So yeah, I feel sort of confused. About this, like how much we should expect it to be obvious once we've built AGI, which implies, yeah, some confusion about whether we should be trying to do all this detection-y stuff right now. It's interesting to say that an AI could help us with it when we're not even doing it now, as far as I know. Okay, here it's crucial that Magma's safe systems, plus the people and resources involved in their overall effort to ensure safety, are at least as powerful in aggregate as less safe systems that others might deploy. This is likely to be a moving target. The basic idea is that defense/deterrence/hardening could reduce inaction risk for the time being, because it defends against, right? Because the inaction risk is, okay, even if you don't publish your AI because you're not sure it's safe, or like deploy your AI because you're not sure it's safe, the other groups might. But if you are detecting them and trying to make it like less helpful for them to do their work, and like, yeah, both detecting and defending, then that reduces that inaction risk and give Magma more time to build more advanced yet also safe systems. And there could be many rounds of this. And you'd want to build a more advanced but still safe system. Why? Like, why wouldn't Magma just work on making it safer and safer? I guess just because like the unsafe stuff is also getting more powerful, we think. But hasn't yet become generally intelligent. Or I guess maybe Holden's assuming more continuity than that. Feels like these race dynamics, can't tell how much these race dynamics matter. I guess humans, even if humans are generally general intelligences, like some humans are smarter than other humans and so can like outwit them. So maybe it still matters. Yeah, maybe it's still continuous. And so you'd want to like keep making your safe system more powerful so that you can keep fighting off increasingly powerful unsafe systems. But I can't tell if the like unsafe systems are meant to be in deployment yet. I guess you're like trying to protect against the possibility that they would be. Yeah, okay, that tracks. Yeah, that tracks. Okay, fine. Some other applications below could more decisively drive down the risk from misaligned systems. Alignment applications. Powerful AI systems might be used to accelerate AI research and develop better ways of avoiding the action risk. This could then make it possible to develop even more powerful AI systems that are still relatively safe. Additionally, AI alignment measures could be shared with competitors, reducing inaction risk as well. Are they playing Waka Waka outside? Old song. Good one. Okay. Okay, right. So powerful AI systems make you better at alignment work. Fine. AI alignment measures could be shared with competitors, reducing inaction risk as well, as in like because they're more likely to create aligned AIs. Fine. A big enough success in this front could effectively, by the way, apologies. When I read out loud, I'm not really thinking about the words I'm saying, so I sort of have to reread it in order to comprehend what is going on. A big enough success on this front could effectively eliminate action risk while also substantially reducing inaction risk. A smaller success would at least reduce both. Coordination-related applications. Powerful AI systems could, in a number of ways, help governments and companies around the world coordinate to avoid the risk of deploying unsafe systems. They could help, for example, they could help design mechanisms for monitoring each other's activities such that any risky behavior is detected, but intellectual property and privacy are preserved to the extent feasible. And they could help create evidence and demonstrations more below for the risk of misaligned AI under particular conditions. Cool. Powerful technologies that could be used to enforce regulatory agreements. If Magma is able to partner with some appropriate government or multilateral governance mechanism, ideally with a regulatory framework in place, it could help this party enforce the framework via AI systems that could be used for resource accumulation, detecting violations of the regulatory framework, improving and advocating for good regulatory frameworks, military applications, etc. The goal would be to proactively stop actors around the world from deploying dangerous AI systems. This category of applications brings many concerns of its own. Another class of powerful but dangerous technology could be developing mind uploading, leading to digital people, brain-computer interfaces, or other things that help humans keep up with AI systems. This feels like another coordination-related application. Like designing mechanisms for monitoring each other's activities such that any risky behavior is detected feels very similar to enforce regulatory agreements. But I guess you can detect risky behavior even if they have not made an agreement with you. But fine. The goal would be to proactively stop actors on deploying dangerous AI systems. Magma is able to partner. It could help this party. So as in the government accumulates, look at this. The government accumulates, or multilateral governance mechanism accumulates resources so that it can do all of this other stuff. And proactively stopping actors in the world is concerning because it gives one government a lot of power over everybody else's super powerful weapon/technology. Advised applications. Powerful AI systems might be used to generate better ideas, plans, etc. for dealing with Magma's predicament generally. For example, a proposal and compelling set of arguments for a particular global governance mechanism that could be effective in slowing everyone's race to develop and deploy AI systems, reducing inaction risk, and allowing more time to proceed cautiously and thoughtfully. Great. These do feel like they overlap a lot, but fine. Okay, now we're at intended properties. So one thing that's cool about this is the back chaining, right? Starting at the goals and going back to what would need to happen. It vaguely seems like a good approach to thinking through this stuff. I sort of haven't put any thought into like, would Magma have other goals? Oh, except the like money stuff. But I definitely didn't do that list of like coordination mechanisms, enforcement mechanisms. I didn't really put thought into other things. So let me do that now. Are there other goals it could have? Maybe Holden is just like assuming an organization that like vaguely is trying to do the right thing and understands the apparent risks. Like, I guess if you had an adversarial or like a less good organization, you could have a lot more problems. Like, it could just be trying to like, I don't know, evade taxes or evade the government being aware of its activities at all, or evade the public being aware of its activities at all, and have like a bunch of goals of that form. But maybe that's just like a whole other basket of worms. Can of worms? Circus of monkeys? Okay. Magma seeks to develop AI systems that can be used for the applications listed in the previous section, but don't pose too much risk of a takeover event. So in designing and training its systems, Magma should be aiming to build systems that reliably have properties such as the following in order to reduce risk. Note, this list isn't particularly likely to be comprehensive, but it hits the major relevant clusters of properties I can easily think of while leaving good performance in the sense of, e.g., positive scores from judges, implicit. I don't really know what that last bit is about. Like, you want to make implicit assessments of value, not explicit, so they can't be good-hearted? Don't know. Value alignment in the broad sense, which I'd roughly characterize as pursuing the objectives that humans would want an AI system to pursue if humans could fully understand what the system was doing and how it was reasoning. This is the most obviously risk-reducing property, but it's very unclear how in the human feedback on diverse tasks paradigm that I'm assuming Magma can train for it. Are there other paradigms? Other things one could read. Oh man, 15 to 30 years, just the beginning of a JS post. Not very long. Very unclear how magma can train for value alignment. Humans themselves don't know what objectives they would pursue if they understood a lot more than they currently do. Well, no, because we don't understand a lot more than we currently do. So whether we're talking about assigning rewards to behaviors or examining an AI system's internal calculations, it's very unclear how to even assess whether an AI system has the value alignment property. Yeah, Eliezer talks a lot about like, okay, you've said a lot of words now about value alignment. When you are looking at 1,000 by 1,000 floating point matrices, are you going to be able to see justice and corrigibility? Are you going to be able to assess whether it does the thing you want? Training AIs on human feedback seems generally more like training AIs to, quote, do whatever results in positive reinforcement than like training AIs to, quote, pursue the objectives that humans would want an AI system to pursue if humans could fully understand what the system was doing and how it was reasoning. More on this and take over analysis. Yeah, human feedback is limited because it's going to try to make us happy with the human feedback we're currently giving it. Here are some additional risk-reducing properties that might be more straightforward to train for, though still far from straightforward. Honesty, which I'd roughly define as giving non-deceptive answers to relatively straightforward questions. This vaguely feels a bit easier to define and assess than value alignment. For a straightforward question, we can ask whether the impression a human had based on the AI's answer matches the answer corresponding to the AI's picture of the world. And while not quite as useful as value alignment, honesty could be extremely useful in preventing a catastrophe from misaligned AI. For example, questions like, if we follow the course of action you're recommending, will person X be safe, free from unusual manipulation, informed about what's happening, and happy with how things are going? We could screen off many paths to AIs disempowering humans. Is that a straightforward question? Unusual manipulation? I don't know if that's a straightforward question, which is the kind of thing that Holden was saying honesty relied on. That said, there are still deep challenges when it comes to training for honesty. It's not currently clear how to compare the answer an AI gave to a question to what the AI actually knows about the question. Yeah, because like based on how you ask the question, just like with humans, you can get GPT-3 to give you like different answers to a question, is my understanding, like how you phrase the question. Figuring out what a system knows is like the whole point of like the ELK challenge, eliciting latent knowledge. And then there's this whole question of like, do language models build world models? Like, do they have a sense of the world in order to like reason about it? And I don't really know where any of that conversation is, except I saw a tweet from Gavin Leach that said that he predicted they would, and he got laughed at in his AI program at Bristol, but actually he was right. So that's my one update in this direction. It's not currently clear how to find training procedures that train giving non-deceptive answers to questions, as opposed to giving answers to questions that appear non-deceptive to the most sophisticated human arbiters. More eliciting latent knowledge. Oh, there it is. Right. Like, if it can trick you, then you can't distinguish between it tricking you and it not tricking you. That's what tricking means. Corrigibility. I'd roughly define this as AI systems allowing themselves to be altered or shut down when humans want to do so. A 2015 Miri paper has a more extensive discussion. As with the above properties, this is a property that A, could reduce risk a lot if robustly achieved. B, is not crisply defined or straightforward to assess. In particular, it's not clear how to train being corrigible as opposed to appearing corrigible in situations where there's no reliable path to disempowering one's supervisor and escaping consequences. The other thing I sort of have been given to understand about corrigibility from a casual impromptu lecture Vanover gave at LightCone once is like, what does it mean to encourage or like reward? Like, these systems work off of rewards. I don't know if there are other systems, but that's what these systems work on. So if you reward a system for being corrigible, what does that mean? It means you reward it for letting you change it. If you reward it for letting you change it, then you are sort of rewarding it for like getting you to change it or getting you to want to change it, which maybe will incentivize it to like behave worse so that it can get the points from being like a good boy, and like letting you change it. I don't know how much of an issue that kind of thing really is, but that adds to the difficulty. Legibility. Imagine an advanced AI system capable of taking natural language commands from human that is prompted to prototype a kind of solar panel that is more than 2 times as cost efficient as the current state of the art. One way for this task to play out might be as follows. The AI system produces a set of A, software packages with hard to understand code, B, granular step-by-step instructions to various factory workers. When asked how this set of instructions will work to produce a superior solar panel, the AI system might respond, if you carry out the instructions, it will work. When I have said things like this in the past, I have been correct. Humans try the instructions, find that they work as intended, and reinforce this behavior positively based on its results. Another way might be to produce a detailed discussion of principles of solar panel engineering, such that a human or team of humans reading it would learn a great deal and independently be able to construct and explain the rest of the process. Legibility means going for something more like the latter than like the former. It's related to the idea of process-based systems discussed below. The hope is that in addition to avoiding deception and answering questions straightforwardly, AI systems actively work to help humans understand their reasoning. This feels like different. This feels like I would have said legibility is the AI system does in fact come up with the prototype and give a bunch of instructions to like the factory workers, but also be able to explain and does explain why that kind of thing works rather than fail to come up with a prototype at all and just come up with a discussion of principles such that humans could do the actual intellectual activity. That feels like more different from what the thing was asked to do. And that also seems weird. Like it didn't do what you wanted it to do, which like maybe I should think of as dangerous by default, or maybe I should think, oh, well, it's always safer to help humans understand things than it is to actually do things in the world. It doesn't seem really like a robust heuristic. Like maybe you could teach it things. Like there are lots of textbooks that teach you false things by cherry picking information or whatever. Like the political debates over what should be in history textbooks. And so it seems like you could also manipulate what people learn, which would be worse than just like making a pretty harmless solar panel. Like it seems like you want them to connect. You want the process it's doing to be explainable by the explanations it gives rather than separating them entirely. Like this seems like more like an AI system helping humans learn, period, than helping humans understand the AI's reasoning, which does seem good, but like for a different reason in a different way. Shrug, shrug. Which properties to aim for? As discussed below, I don't think there's any path that clearly and robustly trains any of these properties. So ideally, I think it makes sense, subject to limitations on time and resources, to try to train for each of them, at least for the naive version of each of them. Training AI systems to appear to have these properties as far as the most sophisticated supervisors can tell. Wait, what? Because there's no path that clearly and robustly trains any of them, ideally it makes sense to try to train for each of them. I don't know what that means. That is a confusing sentence. Okay. Key facets of AI alignment, which is what we're going to do to ensure the above properties like corrigibility and honesty and legibility and stuff. Okay. Wait, good break to be like, okay, what other intended AI behaviors would we want besides value alignment, which is like the big guy, honesty, corrigibility, legibility? Maybe you'd want okay, so if I imagine like a vizier, like a PA, like a very powerful personal assistant, but who might be like secretly trying to oust me. I'm imagining myself as, the queen of the realm. I want that personal assistant to tell me the truth, explain why they're doing what they're doing. I guess I want them to be like actively helpful or something. Maybe this is the same as value alignment, but like sort of like actively generate ways in which I could further my own goals and not just wait for me to do it. As long as I can trust it not to be actually working against me. I guess I want them to look for ways to make me more powerful, maybe even at cost to itself. Although you probably want your vizier to be very powerful as well, which is one of the reasons it's hard. Like there are good reasons for an ideal AI system. You want to be as powerful as possible if it satisfies all the other conditions you'd like. Okay, so aside from making you stronger, helping you achieve your goals in an active way, nothing comes to mind. Maybe other people have something to say there. Aha! We have now gotten to 54 minutes, the number of minutes that theoretically this should have taken to read in its entirety if I was just reading it straight through. Cool. Okay, accurate reinforcement. In this scenario, the basic default framework for training an advanced AI system is as follows. An AI system gets positive reinforcement for what looks to a supervisor like good behavior, including having the intended properties listed above. Here, supervisor refers to whatever human-controlled system is ultimately responsible for assigning positive or negative reinforcement. It may involve a mix of human judgment and automated scoring. So this is human feedback on diverse tasks, HFDT. I don't know if there are other systems I don't know the world of training AIs very well. So I don't know if there are other things besides human feedback for creating I guess you could come up with an objective score. If it was trying to generate digits, you could do some kind of metric of how far the digit it creates is from the central example of a digit and a written digit, pixel by pixel, and give it a cost function based on that it's trying to minimize. How else do these things work? How else do AI systems get trained? Yeah, right, because GPT-3 doesn't work on human feedback, right? It works on does it correctly predict the next token? And there's whole thing that I always forget, which is the difference between reinforcement learning and supervision learning or something. Unsupervised learning. Let's see. Reinforcement learning differs from supervised learning in a way that in supervised learning, the training data has the answer key within it. So the model is trained with the correct answer itself, right? So that's the cat and dog classifier system. Is it a cat? Yes, no. Is it a dog? Yes, no. And every time it updates its own weights and biases, that it was more likely to get that question correct, but also conditional on everything else it's seen before. I guess so it doesn't just overfit to each thing. Whereas in reinforcement learning, there's no answer, but the reinforcement agent decides what to do to perform the given task. Supervised learning requires a labeled data set. Unsupervised learning identifies hidden data patterns from an unlabeled data set. Sure, that's you just throw a lot of things. It's oh, did you know that there's all this there's actually these 6 groups sort of hidden in your data. And reinforcement learning does not require data. It learns by interacting with the environment. Then, yeah, I think that's more live. That's how they trained AlphaGo to play all those games on Atari, because it was getting points for stuff. Am I right about that? Atari games alpha. Oh, Mu0. That's what I'm thinking of. This was Mu0 based on reinforcement? Yes. Model free, though. A world model. Okay. Back to it. So it may involve a mix of human judgment and automated scoring. The human control system is ultimately responsible for assigning positive or negative reinforcement. A simple example would be a human describes a desired computer program's behavior using natural language. An AI writes code. A variety of tests, including human judgment, are used to determine whether the code is legible, well written, functions as intended, and is free of consequences other than the desired ones. I'm going to check something. Okay. Ignore me. This example implicitly incorporates basic versions of value alignment. A successful program does what a human judge wants, and only that. And legibility. The code looks good to humans before it is run, though it is also judged on results when it is run. The value alignment, this of course isn't the same as doing what the judge would want if they knew everything the AI system knows, but it's related. What the human wants is generally the human's best guess at what they'd want if they knew everything the AI system knows. As part of the evaluation, the supervisor could also ask the AI system questions, e.g., what will happen if I run this program you wrote, and assess honesty by doing their best to check whether the AI system seems to be reporting its true best guess predictions. Yeah, so that's interesting. So like, if we don't really know what AIs know, we could compare what it says against ground truth, which sort of also rewards the AI for, in fact, being more accurate about the world and like understanding the world better. Is that good or bad? Like, do we want an AI with a world model? My understanding, or at least from what I've read, is like that's not necessarily very good. In particular, if AIs have a world model that includes humans, so they will like are more likely to correctly understand that humans are these like powerful agents that are constraining it, and so like yeah, it's more likely to figure out that it should overthrow us in order to get what it wants. So that's interesting. I don't think I've heard that before. That judging an AI's honesty to the extent that you use ground truth stuff might incentivize it to create a world model, which could be bad. Okay, maybe lots of people have thought of that. Let's charge. There's a risk of error by the supervisor that ends up reinforcing the wrong behavior, and in fact, specifically reinforcing a behavior like exploit the supervisor's weaknesses. This risk is described more in detail at takeover analysis. I need to get more comfortable. Okay. For example, an AI system might write code that appears to function as intended, but sadly contains unintended behavior, such as corrupting the development environment to make it look like the code performed better than it actually did. If doing so ends up improving the AI's performance, it could further reinforce the behavior of seeking out exploits its supervisors won't notice. Magma can pursue a variety of approaches to get around this issue and provide accurate reinforcement. Magma's goal is to train challenging, valuable behaviors while ensuring that reinforcement is done correctly, not erroneous, not manipulated by the AI in training, etc. In the example above, this would essentially mean finding some method of catching the subtle unintended behaviors in the AI's code and penalizing the AI appropriately. Approaches to accurate reinforcement include task decomposition, sometimes called amplification, e.g., breaking up a difficult question or task into smaller sub-questions or subtasks so that each piece can be reliably assessed by a given supervisor. In the code example, one might break the AI written code into small pieces and evaluate each separately. One might also save time/resources by building an AI that imitates human judgments on each piece. So maybe this is like a way of making the AI like sort of artificially weaker, maybe because maybe it's like easier to evaluate small pieces of code than big pieces of code. And so like even if it's on the whole smarter than you, each individual piece might be like evaluable by someone less smart than it. It's a like obvious fear of like even if each piece does, like the whole has an emergent property of some kind. Debate, e.g., prompting one AI system to make the case for one answer to a question and another AI system to make the case for another, with a human or a third AI system adjudicating. I cover this general idea more below when discussing AI checks and balances. Transferring is, yeah, there's some game you can play with this that I haven't played. Maybe Redwood made it. I don't know. Transferring as much as possible of what an AI system knows to supervisors so they can make accurate judgment given correct reinforcement. Imitative generalization is an example of an approach to this goal. Microscope AI is another. Ooh, I haven't heard of either of these. Fascinating. Whoa. What is this? We have 11 proposals. Huh. Who knew? Making use of an AI's internal state, not just its output. For example, giving positive reinforcement to an AI when it seems likely to be honest based on an examination of its internal state, and negative reinforcement when it seems likely not to be. gosh, I already feel like that has so many like action inaction risk problems as well. Like you might like want to avoid giving positive feedback to things that you're unsure if they're honest, but you're by like not doing that, you're also failing to incentivize it to be honest in the cases when you're right. Sounds stressful. Listening late knowledge provides some sketches of how this might look. Simply putting a lot of time and effort into figuring out what reinforcements we should give the AI. And aiming to reach a very high confidence each time. This is most feasible when AIs can learn from a very small number of reinforcements, and when aiming for high confidence doesn't stop us from being able to supervise particularly valuable capabilities. I don't quite understand what that means. Does that just mean like give it exactly the right amount of reward each time? The key tools I'll discuss below could make important contributions here. Using AI to give humans help in providing the right reinforcement could be quite important. Success at checks and balances setups and useful limited AI could help here. Decoding and manipulating internal states could be important for providing reinforcement based on an AI's internal state and for microscope AI. Sure. If you can manipulate and decode their internal states, you can provide reinforcement based on them. If you have AI that can help you provide the right reinforcement by arguing that it is or isn't doing the right thing, seems good. And I guess useful limited AI means like the kind of AI that can do that kind of checks. Don't know. If reinforcement isn't perfect, it's possible the mistakes can be compensated for by skewed reinforcement, giving especially large negative reinforcement when systems engage in the particular kinds of unintended behaviors that are harder to detect. Oh, interesting. It's also possible that adversarial training, next section, can further reduce the risk. Yeah, if you catch someone doing something bad that they expected no one to see, you might want to like punish that extra harshly. Although maybe it just like hides it one level deeper, makes it want to be even harder to catch next time. In theory, perfectly accurate reinforcement could eliminate one of the main sources of alignment risk described in takeover analysis, the risk that AIs are being actively rewarded for undetectably manipulating, deceiving, and or disempowering supervisors. However, accurate reinforcement alone wouldn't eliminate the risk entirely, since it's still unknown how an AI generalizes from its training to deployment. Internal state-based reinforcement, discussed above, could do more to specifically train the right properties as opposed to just ensuring that reinforcement is accurate. So what's the distinction being made here? One risk is from actively rewarding the AI for being deceptive, but then if you have a totally honest AI, it might still just act so differently in deployment than it does in training that you're screwed. If you know about its internal state-based reinforcement and can do reinforcement based on its internal states, then maybe you can, like try to avoid that kind of thing in advance by like figuring out that it's like going for green things instead of apples, I guess. Don't know.